What's good, everybody? It's your boy Batman, and we're over here doing another Naruto video, and this is going to be a really interesting versus battle. This will be a versus battle video, and a lot of people have discussed Sage Naruto against a lot of certain characters. They discussed him against 5 Kage Summit Sasuke. They have discussed him against, X, Y, and Z, you name it, okay? And we've had plenty of showings of Sage Naruto. And it's been very interesting. And just recently, okay, which not a lot of people have realized this actually, is if we come over to YouTube and we go to Mr. Seth the Programmer, they've actually done a Sasuke versus Kakashi video, and overall, we don't give a shit about you, Mr. Beast. Get the fuck out of here. Okay? We don't care about you. But overall, they've done a video, and it's a very, very good video. Very, very, very good video. Okay? And I just kind of wanted to show you guys that real quick because at the end of the day, it gave me something interesting to think about. And the first thing I thought about was, well, what if we discussed Naruto versus Kakashi? Not Sasuke versus Kakashi, Naruto versus Kakashi. Okay? And for everybody out there, everyone is 9 times out of 10, okay, people are more than likely actually going to be like, oh, that's easy. Sage Naruto takes it. It's understandable. Let's just look at Naruto. He has ridiculous chakra and stamina reserves, okay? Obviously, way more than Kakashi. We all know that, and that's not even something to even argue with. Okay, he's a very powerful, capable shinobi, even in base. Okay, and then with Sage Mode, as we all know, Sage Mode heavily amps you and amplifies your powers, ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, and overall increases your stats completely. Okay, making you on a whole other level. One prime example is us seeing that with Kabuto. Another is seeing that with Jiraiya going from the legendary Sonning to then the legendary Sage mode, Sonning user. Okay, then we have Naruto, who's a clear, obvious example as well. We have even Minato, who's another example. We have tons of examples of what Sage mode can do for people. And if we all don't know what Sage mode is basically a user mastering the capabilities of nature energy, and basically combining that within your own physical capabilities, and overall it just enhances you to a whole other degree. So with Sage Mode, that puts Naruto even on a whole other dangerous level and caliber, to the point where this man can make his Raisengans massively more powerful and bigger compared to him just doing it in his base, to the point where his most powerful jutsu that he had at the time, the Raisen Shuriken, was even more enhanced. It even enhanced his KCM2. All kinds of stuff. Overall, it truly, really goes a long way. And what's even more dangerous about Sage Mode Naruto is the fact that, he can do thousands of clones coming at you with Sage Mode as well, spamming massive Raisengans, or freaking chucking and spamming Raisen Shurikens that we've also seen in the fight with against the Ninetales. Then, we have everything that we've seen with Pain. That was a really good showings in a fight with him. We've also seen Naruto use Sage Mode in the war, which he did that against Madara Uchiha, and he also did it against the 3rd Raikage. So we've had plenty of showings with Naruto in Sage Mode. We've even seen Naruto go in Sage Mode during when he was fighting against Obito and Madara, and I think he was chucking Rising Shurikens or something at the Ten Tails or something like that. So overall, Naruto is a beast. Okay, he's a very, very dangerous character with Sage Mode. That's something for all of us to really, really understand, and that's not a laughing matter at all. Okay, who we got in the next corner would be Kakashi. Okay, and as we all know, Kakashi, he's a prodigy ninja. He's a very, very intelligent ninja, a fucking actual genius. Was a genius from the start when he was a little kid, and was also the kid of Sakumo Hatake, who is also a legendary ninja. And overall, Kakashi is just a very, very talented ninja. Able to mastering 1,000 jutsu over thousands of jutsu with the Sharingan, capable of using genjutsu, taijutsu, and ninjutsu. Invented his own S rank jutsu as well, the Raikiri. Okay, which is a really powerful fucking jutsu. And he can be able to also use shadow clones and substitutions very incredibly in order to be able to basically analyze his opponents and exploit weaknesses and come up with counter strategies, despite the lack of power of difference. Or better yet, you know what I mean, even if he's at a point where, you know, it may seem absolutely impossible to beat, he still is able to find a will and a way, overcoming those odds despite the power level of difference, or better yet, someone that's in a whole other league compared to him. So overall, one thing that Kakashi does have over Naruto is experience and intelligence, and that is without an absolute doubt. He has consistently and over periodically had constant showings of him able to use his intelligence to analyze and exploit his opponent's weaknesses, to be able to defeat them, or overall be able to basically win even against the odds of them having absolute crazy amount of advantages, whether if it's stamina, chakra, visual, okay, freaking hacks abilities, you name it. He is no fucking joke. But what makes Kakashi really, really dangerous is not only with, you know, all of his access to all the ninjutsu he can use, even genjutsu. Okay, his taijutsu is pretty awesome as well, along with his Raikiri and other lightning style abilities, such as doing the lightning cable that is capable of slicing through V2 transformation Jinchurikis. Also shooting a Raikiri dog for long range or mid range attack, and he can also amplify its power and speed depending on how much chakra he's emitting into it. And basically, if you get hit by that move, it basically paralyzes you and it immobilizes you, and that's it. But overall, like, Kakashi is a very, very fearsome opponent. But this is the most incredible thing about him. All of that doesn't even make him so dangerous and powerful. Instead, what really makes this guy an absolute beast is his Mangekyo Sharingan. That is what is really, really scary about this guy. Okay, overall, his Mangekyo Sharingan is basically instant activation, and basically whenever he looks at you, you start getting warped into another dimension through space and time itself, and you're basically dead. Literally, from the databook statements, you cannot escape it. There's no defense against it, and overall, you're basically fucked. Okay, and it's wherever he looks is where he gets you, and it doesn't matter about the size. It doesn't matter about, you know, whatever the case may be. You're basically screwed. If you analyze his feats during the War arc, and if you also analyze Kakashi's feats during the Kakazu arc, the Pain arc, and even in the beginning of the show of him using Kamui, okay, and even against Sasuke, which he uses it against Sasuke twice, okay, well, actually, not against Sasuke twice. He uses it once against Sasuke, and then he uses it against Obito, Madara. And then Madara points his hand out and says, that's useless, don't use that jutsu against him, which obviously the reason why is because that's literally his eye, Kamui, so he can basically negate it. Which is the only way, by the way, to be able to not be affected by it. You have to be Obito or have Obito's eye in order to even have any chance of surviving that attack. So, overall, like, that ability is absolutely ridiculous, okay? And that's his biggest trump card. And 9 times out of 10 in character, Kakashi only immediately uses it if he realizes he has no other option, or better yet, if he's going against an opponent so dangerous to where he doesn't even want to take a chance. Every time he's done that, he's always used it when he's dead serious and bloodthirsted, or if he eventually doesn't have a choice whatsoever, and no matter what, that's his only way of basically either winning or just to avoid taking a chance of losing. So, and that's just how it goes with Kakashi. If you analyze him from the manga or the anime, all the way from episode 1 or the beginning of the manga, all the way to, you know, to the war arc, it is in character, and that is how he uses that ability, Kamui. Okay, so, or he'll be able to use Kamui at perfect strategic moments, okay, to where it basically is able to allow him to survive and fuck up anyone he's basically going against. Okay, so overall, like, you know, he's no fucking joke. Okay, Kakashi is a very, very dangerous shinobi. Very, very dangerous. Insane hacks ability. Has like ridiculous amount of things at his disposal. You know, you might as well give him a utility belt of how much he could be able to do. Very intelligent shinobi, and never ever underestimates his opponent. And 9 times out of 10, because of his intelligence, his abilities, his strategic, and him being an expert and technician, and so on and so forth, along with his Mangekyo Sharingan, he is absolutely a fucking beast. Okay, So we're dealing with two shinobi that are really, really powerful in their own right. Kakashi is all types of a fighter. Close combat, mid-range, and far-range type ninja fighter. Naruto is a close-range fighter, meaning that he either has to get in your face, or basically, you know, his ninjutsu, and along with his taijutsu and all that, is more for just close combat type fighter. Kakashi even has a moment where he even roasts him about that, basically telling him that right now your opponent is Deidara, and he's one of the worst opponents for you to ever fight. You either have to beat him at his own game, okay, or you have to somehow force him to get into close combat. Those are only two ways to do that, okay, and so on and so forth, etc. And basically it goes on and it goes from there. But anyways, so overall, now we're going to start, since we've established a clear understanding of the characters and what they can do basically briefly. Obviously, I'm not going over every manga page with Kakashi, every manga page with Naruto, basically, you know, with their abilities and what they can do and performance-wise. Instead of me doing all that, because I would make this a very, very long video, I'm going to briefly discuss all the interactions they've had, the times they fought in each other, so on and so forth, and then at the end of the day, build a conclusion of who would beat who, depending on the circumstances, and overall, why that is my conclusion. So, now that that's all been established, we're going to talk about the moments that they've had interactions and kind of compare and contrast, and then I will give my conclusion. So the first moment we actually even see anything kind of remotely go down between Kakashi and Naruto is actually during the Bells test. So in the manga, they basically go head-to-head, and Kakashi's basically dealing with him at ease, effortlessly at this point. And then it gets to a point where Sakura gets involved, he dodges her attack and all that, etc. And then they talk, whatever. It does a time skip, and then basically, you know, what's it called? Naruto and Sakura discussing, like, man, how do we beat him, blah, blah. He basically, his master of the Sharingan is more better than Sasuke. He has the intellect of Shikamaru, the smell of Kiba, yada, yada, yada. They're basically just hyping him up and saying it's nearly impossible to fight him. There's no way we're going to win. And remind you, this is Naruto and Sakura against Kakashi. 2 against 1. And they're literally saying it's absolute hopeless to beat him. Okay, and they basically were hyping up his taijutsu skills, genjutsu, ninjutsu, all that, and they tried everything and they keep failing, and they're still at a disadvantage. So they're like, what do we do? And then Naruto comes up with the idea with the whole book thing, and that's how they end up getting the bells, kind of exploiting a mental weakness. And as we all know, mental amps and mental nerves are a big deal in Naruto. And it basically made all his skill and intellect and you name it out the window, and they were able to get the bells, and they won the fight. Okay, so that was the first interaction. But overall, just from that interaction alone, which this would be during, I guess you could say, the Kazekage arc, okay, Kakashi absolutely destroys Naruto. Naruto doesn't even have Sage Mode. The only reason why I'm even bringing this up and talking about is because literally it's base Naruto, and that does have some type of, you know, relevance and whatnot to this versus battle, even though it is Sage Mode Naruto against Kakashi. Talking about base Naruto is also important as well. That'd be very stupid not to talk about him. Okay, so overall, you know, that's what you're dealing with. And at that point, Kakashi is way over Naruto. And even if Naruto even had Sage Mode at that time, you know what I mean? Like, despite of talking about Sage Mode, it's still way more in Kakashi's advantage to be able to take care of Naruto. That's just due to the experience, you know what I mean? Intellect difference, so on and so forth. Then when we do a time skip and we get basically into when Naruto is using like the 9 tails power, you know what I mean? Like along with 1 tail, 3 tails, and eventually 4 tails. So even if Naruto was to actually tap into the 9 tails power, we've actually seen Kakashi be able to react and deal with the 9 tails transformation. So when he went against Naruto, when Naruto had 1 tails and up to 3, Kakashi was able to immediately basically speed blitz Naruto and put a ceiling tag on his forehead and immediately immobilize the power of the 9 tails. He didn't even take chances, and he was like, nah, fuck you, I ain't dealing with that shit. Okay, so in character, Kakashi's not going to let Naruto have a drastic amount of a power amp in the 9 tails, because if he does, then obviously Kakashi's basically fucked, okay? He would have to use his Raikiri, use, you know, his Jutsu, so on and so forth, to really give him a fighting chance at all. And more than likely would be forced to use Kamui, and then they would go from there. Okay, but either way, even with the 9 tails amp for Naruto, okay, Kakashi is still faster and able to at least be on par with that level as well. Even when he went to chart, there was a point when Naruto was in the QB form, and he went to charge Sasori and Datara, and Kakashi was still able to speed blitz him and get in front of him. Okay, even though Naruto was also being amped by the Nine Tails at that moment, it wasn't him just even in base. So that's another moment to where, clearly showing that Kakashi either has, superior speed than him, or they're still in the same ballpark, if you want to low ball and be fair. Okay, so overall, that's kind of what you're dealing with in the beginning. Okay, then when we move on to I would believe, this would be the Hit-On and Kakazu arc. Okay, Naruto basically gets a lot more experience. Okay, he develops a 50% rise in Shuriken, and overall, he's a lot better with utilizing his shadow clones as well. Okay, to where he's basically using them to gain experience and basically come up with countermeasures on how to defeat his opponent. So when he went against Kakashi and he sent off like 2 shadow clones to fight him, he was like, based on his combat speed and yada yada and this and that, I'm gonna have to use 3 shadow clones in order to basically counteract his speed and blah blah and etc. And so then he uses 3 shadow clones, successfully was able to create an opening and was about to kill Kakashi at that exact moment, but then his Rising Shuriken fizzled and he was basically back from scratch. And so then when that happened, then Kakashi basically did another transformation to become now a long-range fighter, and it also even amped him in chakra and power as well, which is stated by Yamato. So now Kakashi is even more powerful and faster, and basically what happens is Naruto does the same amount of shadow clones, just 3, but he makes himself go into the shadow clones that are charging. Kakashi overestimated him and thought he would still be sitting in the back with the Rising Shuriken. Immediately went for that one, thinking it was the real one. It wasn't, and because he did all of his fucking attacks on one of them like an idiot, Naruto and his other shadow clones just basically came up from him from behind, were fast enough, and bam, tagged him, and he was dead. So overall, that base Naruto, okay, he was able to defeat Kakashi in his 2 transformations and use shadow clones in order to be perfect strategic diversions and be able to create openings to fuck him up, basically. Okay, so that's kind of what you have with Naruto at that point. Then you have Kakashi, to where Kakashi at that point, can still use Kamui, a lot more adept in experience at using it and controlling it. Okay, basically, still has Raikiri, his 1,000 Jutsu, Shadow Clone Substitution, you name it. Was also fighting against Hit-On and Kakashi at the same exact time. Okay, was also, while hidden at least, was able to speed blitz Kakashi from behind, and to where Kakashi couldn't even detect him or react, and that's even stated by Kakashi. So meaning that he has ridiculous speed with Raikiri, which makes sense. The Raikiri does make you faster. Okay, and overall, that's kind of what Kakashi was at that point. Now, and that's kind of what you have there. Now, if we're discussing that version of Naruto, and let's say he also had Sage Mode as well, okay, I would still give Kakashi the win in that. And the only reason why is Kakashi is still more experienced, still more intelligent, has many ways to be able to interact and basically deal with Naruto, okay, and was consistently, and I mean consistently, dealing with Kakashi and Hit-On by himself, okay, and was still able to cut through Kakashi's tentacles and transformation with his Raikiri to save Naruto when he fucked up the Rising Shuriken, and basically had enough speed to be able to get there in time before Kakashi killed Naruto as well. That's something also to put into consideration. But regardless, at that point, even if Naruto had Sage Mode, if Naruto remotely messes up at all by either trying to throw his Rising Shuriken to kill him, or running up or whatever and exhausting his Sage Mode, what's it called, overall, and then if it's down to base, Naruto's basically fucked. Naruto would have to pull a W in his Sage Mode in order to not deal with Kakashi as a threat. Okay? Then you have the Pain Arc, okay, versions of Kakashi and Naruto. Now, with this is interesting, because we get to see Kakashi fight against Tendo Pain in the Ashura Pain, if I'm saying that right. And those are like the 2 strongest pains in my opinion, because they're basically the combat types, and they're ridiculously fucking powerful. And even though Kakashi has way less stamina, way less chakra, and you name it, he utilizes his intelligence and his analyzing abilities to basically be able to deal with the 2 strongest fucking pains relatively and remotely, continue to trade back and forth, and literally is creating successful openings to where the only reason why Pain was even able to survive was because of how durable the robotic Pain was. So the first time Kakashi fucked up one of the Pains was when he basically got stabbed with the universal pull and then the robotic attack combo, but it was a Raikiri clone, and the clone basically paralyzes you and damages you to where then Choji and his dad came and slammed their fist and destroyed the pain. And you guys like, well, that's Kakashi would help and support, so that's, whatever, big deal. But actually, if you are reading the manga as well and in the anime, Kakashi even makes a statement that he's like, wow, well, thanks for the help. You guys basically helped me conserve even more chakra, even though I already had something in motion and plan to deal with that pain. So meaning that he was already basically had a plan in motion to be able to paralyze him and then deal with himself even if they didn't show up. Meaning, therefore, he would have still been okay and capable of taking care of that pain. And that was just from him basically being able to analyze and fight against Tendo Pain and immediately understand his abilities and exploit that weakness. Okay, so overall, like, that's the Kakashi you have. Then the fight continues on, and he does another strategy, basically allowing him to basically create an opening on Tendo Pain, to where Tendo Pain was forced to use the other pain that was supposedly taken care of, but he instead was being very intelligent. Instead of still using him to fight, he made it look like he was dead. And just in case if he needed him for a shield, that's what he would do. And bam, it was a perfect, brilliant idea. And so the Pain is still able to move fast enough and get hit by Kakashi's Raikiri, and then he wasn't able to make it in time, and then Tendo Pain did another Shinra Tensei, and it blasted away Kakashi. And then while Kakashi's basically stuck under Rumble, and he's kind of minorly damaged, okay, Tendo Pain's like, all right, I'm not getting near you, blah, blah, you're too dangerous, I've already underestimated you enough, I'm just going to kill you at a distance. Shoots a fucking nail with Shinra Tensei at an insane speed, and Kakashi's reaction and Kamui's speed activation was still fast enough to be able to cancel it and make it disappear and fake his death, similar to what Pain did with the robotic Pain to trick him. And then Choji was about to, deliver intel and basically run away, but Pain was still being intelligent and making it look like the robotic Pain was dead, especially from getting hit by a Raikiri and Choji's dad's physical taijutsu attack. And basically, once that happened, the Pain was still alive, able to move, and he shoots a missile at Choji. And since Choji is fucking, Choji, okay, he wasn't fast enough to be able to dodge the missile. So Kakashi was like, well, if I use this jutsu, I'll be out of stamina and chakra completely, meaning that I'll die. But he was like, for the sake of the village, and this is the only way to have a chance of defeating Pain, so be it. And he uses Kamui, and he dies. So, and that's basically just that. And that's basically what you're dealing with. And not only that, if you guys are curious of Kakashi's reserves and his chakra and stamina and all that, he can literally use up to 6 Raikiris, okay? Mind you, you heard that. 6 Raikiris, okay? Can spam Kamui multiple times and also use water-style jutsu, okay, along with using shadow clones and substitution jutsu. The man has a decent amount of chakra and stamina. It may not feel like it, and you may not think it is, but he does have a good amount of chakra and stamina to contest with people that generally have more stamina and chakra than him. Just putting that out there, which meaning, therefore, gives him enough time to speed the process up, similar to Itachi, and to be able to defeat their opponents despite them having more chakra or stamina to begin with. So that's something to put into consideration. But that's basically what you're dealing with Kakashi. Then you have Naruto, okay? And this is when he's first introduced with Sage Mode. And this is the crazy part. Sage Mode's no fucking joke. Even though Naruto had all the Toad summonings, Ma and Pa, and intel on the Pains, he still did pretty impressive, okay? And now, if we were to take away the intel and all the Toads and everything and all that, then at the end of the day, Naruto would have got absolutely destroyed. And that's just without a doubt. You could argue that he could have been able to at least taken out at least one of the Pains that he did in the beginning when he threw the Raisen Shuriken. But at the end of the day, that's basically it. He would have only taken out one of the Pains, and he would have basically been fucked because he wouldn't have had any way to basically engage with them one-on-one. He would have to summon Gamabunta or basically summon Ma and Pa. Which I'm not saying he couldn't do that. But you know what I mean? But it's never really shown of him doing that. Like, he didn't do that in the War Arc. And the only thing that he's consistently done is summon Gamabunta. But regardless, you know what I mean, that's about it. So, let's say if he's fighting against Kakashi, it's up to you guys, whatever you want to do. Whether if you want to give him Gamabunta or if you want to give him Ma and Pa. that's a whole other ball game, and I'll talk about that later. But for now, we're just gonna basically be discussing Naruto in Sage Mode by himself. But anyways, regardless, we're gonna go back to the Pain thing. He fights against Pain, puts up a good fight, okay, and basically through the right conditions, the handicaps, Pain also being fatigued, drained, tired, and not having his Tendo powers, and on top of it having to go against Intel, Ma and Paul, and the summonings, you name it. It was enough to allow Naruto to basically be able to beat all the other paths of Pains, to where it basically only boiled down to Tendo Pain. Okay, but this is the interesting part. When Tendo Pain got back his power, he immediately shitted on everyone. He one-shotted all the Toads, he killed Pa immediately, and he immediately dealt with Naruto like he was nothing. So, meaning therefore, if Pain actually had Tendo powers when all 6 paths of Pains were there, Naruto would have died. It would have absolutely been game over, and that would have basically been it. Okay? So, and that's kind of what you're dealing with. And overall, that would have been basically that. But regardless, okay, Naruto's fighting this and that, whatever, and eventually gets to the point where it's just Tendo Pain and Naruto. Tendo Pain shits on everybody by himself, okay? And basically, Universal pulls Naruto, slams him on the ground, creating like a big crater, okay, indicating how much power he has as well, okay? And basically, talks to him, whatever, restrains him with his chakra rods. Then it goes on to where now he has to fight Six Tails Naruto. And then it goes to where he has to fight a mentally amped Naruto, okay, with Sage Mode. Still beats him. Then having to fight against Naruto in base. Still putting up a fight and winning. And because Pain let his guard down and didn't think Naruto was able to throw a Rasengan, he didn't think that Naruto would use his Shadow Clone to fucking like swing him and throw him to him. He lost the 5-second interval and got hit by a Rasengan. And the Rasengan wasn't what basically immobilized the Pain. Naruto immediately went to the Pain's body and then took the chakra rods out. And literally Naruto states that if I don't take these rods out and blah blah, then Nagato will be then he'll still be able to control his movements through the rods and yada yada and etc. So and that's basically how Pain loses. And then it continues on. And then you have the War Arc. So then we have the War Arc, Kakashi and Naruto. Both of them have ridiculous stamina and chakra. Obviously, you could argue that Naruto has, well, not even argue. You can obviously say Naruto still has way more stamina and chakra. But Kakashi gets a stupid fucking amp when it comes to stamina and chakra. And if you thought him being able to do 6 Raikuris, Kamui multiple times, Shadow Clone, Substitution, Water Style Jutsu, you name it, all that. If you thought that was impressive, this guy in the war is spamming Raikuri over and over, spamming Kamui over and over. He is literally just fucking absolutely ridiculous, okay? And overall, basically backpacking in the war, and you name it, and has plenty of incredible fights, plenty of interactions, and you fucking name it, okay? War Arc Kakashi is by far the strongest version of Kakashi we've seen. I'm not even going to get into 6 Pass Kakashi because obviously we should all know the result with that. But maybe towards the end of this video, I'll very, very shortly summarize how that interaction would go, okay? So overall, that's basically the 2 versions you have. Basically, the showings that we see with Sage Naruto during the War Arc is him fighting against the 3rd Raikage, okay? And he's able to use his perception and his, and his Sage Mode abilities to allow him to react. And basically, he's able to shove the Rasengan against his elbow, which forces his arm to move in a direction where his own attack is able to hurt him, and he basically gets defeated, okay? And that's kind of what you have at that point. Now, one thing I'm going to bring up, and this is really interesting, okay? Sasuke has Chidori, okay? Sasuke doesn't have, correct me if I'm wrong, unless there's a data book statement or something that I've missed, because remind you, I did a lot of homework and I looked at a lot of things, data book statements, you name it, manga, whatever. And Sasuke only has Chidori, while Kakashi has Raikuri. And if you guys don't understand the difference between the two, Raikuri is actually more powerful than Chidori. That is a proven fact. So, that's a whole other thing, I'm not going to get into it. But Sasuke's Chidori, okay, was able to pierce the 4th Raikage, okay, and allow him to perceive his movements and hit him and you name it and not get speed blitzed, okay? And it basically did like a little small stab wound and it did cause him to bleed, but it didn't like severely hurt him or basically allow him to defeat him. While Naruto, on the other hand, threw a Sage Mode Raisen Shuriken at 3rd Raikage and was able to, like, basically slam him backwards, okay, but it didn't cause a single scratch or dent, okay? And mind you, this is the 3rd Raikage in Edo, meaning that you could argue that the 4th Raikage would be faster, and could also argue that the 4th Raikage would have even more durability that's better than the 3rd Raikage since he's in Edo, okay? But that's absolutely insane, because meaning, therefore, with the connections that I just established, if you connect the dots, A, B, and C, you could argue that Kakashi's Raikiri might be able to contest Naruto's Raisen Shuriken. I'm not saying it's an absolute guarantee, because what we all should know is that wind obviously beats lightning, and Yamato even explains and talks about how, each elemental, ninjutsus have elemental weaknesses, meaning that water always beats fire, fire always beats wind, wind always beats lightning, etc., etc. But there's something that Yamato does state, and there's multiple times where this is stated in Naruto, to where if you emit enough chakra and emit more chakra, despite the elemental weakness, you can be able to counter it or surpass it. And that has been shown many, many times. Naruto and Sasuke are a prime example of Rasengan versus Chidori. Rasengan is more powerful than Chidori, but because Sasuke basically allows himself to emit more chakra, this way he's not getting beaten by his elemental weakness, he's able to stalemate it 9 times out of 10. And since Sasuke is trying to kill Naruto, and Naruto's not trying to kill Sasuke, you know what I mean? That's basically the end result. Now, if Naruto was applying the same amount of chakra control and amount of power as Sasuke was doing, then yes, Naruto would kill and beat Sasuke with his Rasengan every fucking time. That's just the laws of ninjutsu and elemental ninjutsu. So, therefore, meaning if Kakashi was to apply enough chakra to his Raikiri against the Raisen Shuriken, you could argue that it could be able to, contest it, whatever. But at the end of the day, Kakashi would either send a clone to do that, or substitution, or he would just shoot his long-distance Raikiri, Lightning Dog, okay, which he can be able to amplify its speed and power. It is stated in the data book, and it is also stated that it's basically impossible to dodge, unless you have like a hacks ability or teleportation or whatever. But, obviously he can make that powerful enough, and it can hit it and bam, balance it out, and then just cause an explosion. Because if Kakashi was to do a Raikiri against the Raisen Shuriken, yeah, sure, maybe he could stalemate or whatever, but then it's going to cause a huge explosion, and that's going to fuck up Kakashi. Or it'll just, strike him, all his cells and whatnot, you name it, because remember, when Naruto used it, he also caused himself to be damaged when he was near it as well. So meaning Kakashi does not want to be near this fucking jutsu. He can't be near it. He either needs to dodge it, move, or shoot like a ranged ninjutsu attack to basically contest it. That's the only way he's going to be able to deal with it. And that's basically that. But overall, what's it called? Or Kakashi can emit enough chakra and do like a fireball jutsu, and then bam, he can contest it that way as well. So overall, Kakashi has enough chakra and stamina, and you name it, to be able to contest with the Raisen Shuriken or the Rasengan. If Sasuke can do it, Kakashi can do it as well. And then not only that, we've seen it happen many times. When Kakashi was combining fire and wind, which reminds you, fire makes wind stronger, Kakashi was literally using water-style walls to be able to block and defend that level of an attack potency of ninjutsu. And that is very impressive. He's using his elemental weakness to block against fire, which reminds you, to block against, fire being amped by wind, okay, and he's still stalemating it. Even though it was eventually getting overrun, he was still able to stalemate it, but at least allow him now to have time to dodge and move and etc. That is absolutely very impressive. And then obviously you have the same thing with Sasuke and Naruto with their interactions. There's so many examples in interactions where if you emit enough chakra, okay, you can be able to deal with jutsus that are even more powerful. So if Kakashi does a fireball jutsu or whatever against his one attack, okay, basically he could be able to overpower it, or it would stalemate. It is very possible, and Yamato literally says that that Naruto's wind would always lose to Sasuke's fire, but his wind would always beat Sasuke's lightning. So that's just something to put into consideration. But anyways, enough of that. So then you have the interaction with Naruto doing his massive Rasengan Sage Mode against Madara Susanoo. You know what I mean? And it's not able to break it or anything. He basically, Madara is able to tank it, and then he just kind of hits Naruto away or whatever. But when Naruto does his Rising Shuriken and throws it at Madara Susanoo, Madara literally doesn't continue to rely on the Susanoo, which he probably could have used the Susanoo to block it. You could argue that if he did perfect Susanoo, it probably would have been able to tank it. But literally, because of how powerful it was, how much energy and you name it, he didn't even want to take a chance and said, nah, I'm just going to absorb that shit, and said hacks. So, in my opinion, depending on how you want to look at that feat, I'll let you guys decide that. But, you know, either way, like, that can either be very, very impressive for Naruto, or, you know, maybe not, and Madara at the end of the day just didn't want to take chances. Who knows? At the end of the day, that's basically what we're dealing with, okay? And overall, that's kind of what you have with Naruto. Then you have Naruto using Sage Mode again when he's basically throwing his Rising Shuriken at the Ten Tails and at Madara and Obito, but it's not really doing anything. And then other than that, I think the next moment that you get to see Naruto using Sage Mode is when he's basically fighting against Jubito, and he uses Sage Mode with the Nine Tails power, aka KCM2. Okay, so, but I'm not going to get into all that because that's a whole other ballgame. So, talking from all versions all the way to the War Arc, okay, and you name it. Alright, you know, and mind you, I'm just talking about Sage Mode Naruto. I'm not talking about KCM1, I'm not talking about KCM2, just Sage Mode Naruto and Kakashi. So, now that that's all been discussed, and basically the differences, similarities, you name it, whatever, comparing and contrasting, okay, let's get to business and really, really come up to a conclusion of who beats who at this point. So, overall, you know, if it's Sage Mode Naruto against Kakashi, we're going to have some battle conditions. If it's base Naruto fighting against Kakashi, okay, and they're both bloodthirsted, obviously that's going to be a win for Kakashi. You know what I mean? He's either arguably faster or very easily on par with Naruto, and 9 times out of 10 comes on top with just ninjutsu and taijutsu alone, okay? And then not only that, if the moment Itachi uses his Mangekyo ability, which is, you know, Kamui, Naruto's dead. Okay, he wouldn't have any time to go into Sage Mode. Kakashi wouldn't let him. Unless Naruto has, like, shadow clones, you know what I mean? Like, next to him, like as he normally does to use for his Sage Mode, then that's a different story. He can immediately activate it and either potentially catch Kakashi off guard as well. But if it's just base Naruto and he doesn't have any shadow clones and he's trying to do Sage Mode, Kakashi's not going to give him time to do that. And even if Naruto does like thousands of shadow clones and sends them along Kakashi's way, Kakashi fought against Naruto with thousands of shadow clones and was still able to beat him. Okay, you know, and maybe that could give him enough time to get Sage Mode, but at the end of the day, Kakashi's not an idiot. He's a very, very talented, smart ninja. He's not going to let Naruto have time to do into Sage Mode. Okay, it's just not in character. And overall, you know what I mean, he would beat him at his own game, or what's it called, you know, he could use Mangekyo and that's it, and he's dead. Okay, then you have Sage Mode Naruto. So if Naruto is in Sage Mode, okay, regardless if he has clones or not, okay, if Naruto's in Sage Mode, at the end of the day, as much as I love Kakashi basically can't beat Naruto in taijutsu. He can't beat him in ninjutsu. And not only that, Naruto would be able to dodge and react to all his attacks, okay? And basically would be able to overpower Kakashi every single time. And if Kakashi gets hit by like his Frog Kumite or his ninjutsu, you know, and all that, he's basically going to get fucked and one-shotted. Okay, the only thing you could argue that Kakashi could be able to tank could be Naruto just doing like a regular physical taijutsu attack with Sage Mode. Even though Naruto is more stronger, we've seen Pain be able to block Sage Mode taijutsu attacks and also tank and block Sage Mode attacks as well from Naruto. And mind you, Kakashi and Pain were going back and forth hitting each other as well. So it wouldn't really make any sense to be like, oh, if Naruto lands a punch or a kick, Kakashi's also down for the count. You know what I mean? That wouldn't really make any sense. And even if you were to give Naruto that moment, okay, in character as well, Kakashi's always using shadow clones in substitution, okay? That's just how it goes. So that's basically what you have. And overall, that's just basically it. So, and then not only that, another thing for you guys to not forget, Kakashi can also do the mass Shadow Clone Jutsu. The first time he ever actually used it was on the Bridge arc and the Zabuza arc, to where he does a shit ton of fucking Shadow Clones, basically as many as Naruto did. And, if he can do all those Shadow Clones, he can do Raikuris with them, the lightning chain cable, launching lightning like dogs at him, you name it. And obviously the real one could do Kamui. That's also a way he can be able to combat against Naruto and his Shadow Clones and etc. as well. But anyways, so overall, with all that being into consideration, Kakashi's really fucked at this point. Yes, he can have, his ninjutsu and do all kinds of stuff, you name it, to be able to allow him to create space and give himself time to not die by Sage Mode Naruto. Okay? But at the end of the day, Kakashi only has two options. He either has Genjutsu or he has his Hacks ability. Arguably, Kakashi's Genjutsu could more than likely be able to defeat Naruto. Especially if he's also using Mangekyo Genjutsu. Naruto couldn't even break out of Itachi's Genjutsu, which he only did a regular Genjutsu with his finger. Okay? And we've seen Itachi's regular Genjutsu against Orochimaru. Okay, but that Genjutsu was actually more powerful than the Genjutsu Itachi did against Naruto. Itachi only did a finger Genjutsu. Itachi did a Sharingan Genjutsu to Orochimaru. And then Itachi has Mangekyo Genjutsu and then Tsukiyomi Genjutsu. So overall, Naruto is having difficulty being able to break out of the, Itachi's weakest Genjutsu. Okay, and Obito's Genjutsu, along with Kakashi's Genjutsu, are very powerful as well. And I'm referring to Obito's eyes. Obito's Genjutsu is literally able to control the fucking one of the Kages without him even realizing, kind of pulling off a Shishui feat, which is ridiculous. Okay, and then not only that, his Genjutsu is strong enough to even control the Nine Tails. Kakashi can also do Genjutsu. He can do normal Genjutsu. He can also do Genjutsu with his Sharingan, and he can also do Genjutsu with the Mangekyo Sharingan. Okay, any Uchiha has been able to do it. Kakashi can be able to do it as well. And overall, if Naruto gets hit by a Sharingan Genjutsu or Mangekyo Genjutsu, he's basically fucked, okay? And that would give Kakashi enough time to be able to basically kill Naruto or defeat him, and that's it, okay? Or Kakashi would have to use his Hacks ability, aka Kamui. And Kamui would be able to kill Naruto. Even if Naruto's in Sage Mode, or especially in base, Naruto's getting fucked, okay? And it's that simple. So, and that's basically what you're working with. Now, we're going to talk about Bloodthirsted battle, and then we're going to talk about in-character battle. If it's Bloodthirsted, Kakashi wins. Kamui or Genjutsu, GG. Okay? Kakashi's not an idiot. Literally, I'm telling you right now, even in character as well, okay, Kakashi always uses Kamui if he doesn't want to take a chance, or if he's forced to. With his intelligence and so on and so forth, you name it, okay, he would use Kamui. Whether if he just immediately does it because he doesn't want to fuck with Sage Mode, and so on and so forth, or, Kakashi using his Shadow Clones, using Substitution to feel Naruto out, you name it, and then realizing that no matter anything he does, he basically won't be able to defeat Naruto at his own game. It's just not going to be possible, and that he would have to resort to Genjutsu or Hacks ability, okay? And that could easily be done, and that's it, GG. Okay, now if it's in character, this is interesting, because if they're both really absolutely 100% in character, okay, I might actually give this to Naruto. And the reason why is because at the end of the day, it's Kakashi's student. He's not going to want to kill him, so he is going to be restraining himself and holding back, okay? And Naruto, he'll also be holding back as well because he doesn't want to kill Kakashi. But at the end of the day, if he's forced to have to, let's say the battle condition is like it's in character and he has to get past Kakashi in order to deal with Sasuke. And Kakashi's like, no, I'm going to deal with Sasuke. You stay out of this. And Naruto's like, no, fuck you. And that's why they're fighting. That's going to be the battle condition, okay? Overall, what's it called? Basically, they're going to fight whatever. And the moment Naruto goes into Sage Mode, okay, all he has to do is basically do nothing but Shadow Clones, you know what I mean? And to spam massive Rasengan or Raisen Shurikens, okay? and then basically, what's it called? And enough to basically apply a lot of pressure to Kakashi, to where at the end of the day, Kakashi's gonna get effed up. Okay, and it's just basically gonna be that simple. And you could easily be able to infer and argue that Naruto would more than likely overpower Kakashi at that point, and Kakashi would just lose due to having to either hold back or not wanting to kill him and go all out. Okay, because I don't think Kakashi would use his Mangekyo ability as either if he was trying to just stop Naruto. You know what I mean? Like, that, I don't know. That, in my opinion, it would give Naruto more of the advantage. He already has more stamina, more chakra. His Sage Mode completely destroys Kakashi, in certain aspects, to where even though Kakashi could be able to contest, maybe stalemate some things, whatever, this and that, okay, he's not going to win in that game at the end of the fucking day. It's Sage Mode, for crying out loud. Okay, so either way, that's basically what happened. And then Kakashi would basically come to the determination that he would need Kamui or Genjutsu to defeat him. Now, what you could argue is that Kakashi could pull a Sasuke moment and utilize Genji to be able to deceive Naruto into thinking he's winning or something at a certain moment, and then that gives Kakashi the upper hand to end the fight and, subdue him or whatever. But either way, I feel like Naruto would take the fight in character 9 out of 10 times, okay? But could Kakashi win? Yes, but with high difficulty, if that makes sense. Okay, and that's basically that. So, overall, to kind of conclude and to basically have a final conclusion at the end of the fucking day, okay, if it's in character, Naruto more than likely takes it, but with high difficulty. But could Kakashi win? Yes, but with high difficulty as well. Okay. If it's bloodthirsted, okay, at the end of the day, I love me some Naruto, but Kamui is broken. It's way faster than Naruto trying to pull up a hand sign for Shadow Clones or to do the Rising Shuriken, you name it, and he would get Kamui and he would die. You would have to prove that his Sage Mode could be able to dodge a time-space Genjutsu that literally immediately hits you by just being looked at. Naruto does have sensory and precognition similar to like a Spidey sense to allow him to react and dodge attacks, but not to be able to avoid a hacks-based visual jutsu, aka Kamui. That's not how Sage Mode works. It doesn't grant you immunity or invulnerability to something that immediately affects your body just by being looked at. That makes absolutely no sense, and you cannot debate against that. There's no statement, and there's no feat or anything to prove that Naruto could be able to beat Kamui with his Sage Mode, sensory abilities, you name it. Okay, it's not like a Amaterasu where it's like a projectile, okay, to where basically, you know what I mean, he can be able to move and dodge that, or a physical attack like Raikiri, or whatever the case may be, to where he can also be able to sense and dodge that. This is similar, okay, to Minato's teleportation jutsu, to where it's immediate and teleports, okay, and you're basically fucked, okay? Like, it's just that fucking simple. Now, I would argue and say that if Minato did, like, his flying Raijin, you know what I mean, and teleported, that Naruto probably could be able to still react, even if he teleports behind him or whatever, and he's about to get hit by a Rising Gun, that Naruto's Sage Mode would sense it, and he'd be able to have enough time to move, okay? But if Minato starts obviously spamming teleportation, you name it, he more likely is going to get hit eventually, and that's it. But anyways, I'm not talking about Minato here. But either way, like, Kamui, what the problem with Kamui is, same thing just like Tachi Tsukiyomi and any other visual jutsu. Okay, if they're Genjutsu based, or to the point where they literally warp space and time itself and send you to another dimension, Sage Mode cannot counter that. It's absolutely impossible. So if he's in base or Sage Mode, he's basically fucked. Okay, and it's just that simple. Okay, so if it's bloodthirsted, Kakashi wins 10 out of 10 fucking times with low difficulty. You can't beat fucking Kamui. It's just not happening. And if he also does Genjutsu to Naruto, okay, with his Mangekyo and everything and so on and so forth, he's fucked. Okay, so, and that would also give Kakashi enough time to Raikiri him or whatever, do anything he needs to do, and that's a GG. Okay, so overall, Kakashi wins with bloodthirsted. Naruto has a higher probable chance of beating Kakashi if it's an in-character fight. But Kakashi could also be able to take the W, but with high difficulty as well. Okay? And that's basically what you got. Alright? You know, at the end of the day, they're both powerful characters, but they're both basically are praised, and their calibers are on certain levels in different areas and aspects. And that's basically what you're working with. You know, and that's kind of it. And not only that, guys, you can't sleep on War Arc Kakashi. War Arc Kakashi was ridiculous. Like I said, spamming nothing but Kamui, Raikuris, fucking shadow clones, ninjutsu, you know, you name it, taijutsu, all this shit. He was a fucking beast, okay? And fighting against very, very powerful opponents, okay? While Naruto, on the other hand, was using KCM mode the whole time, and then eventually using Sage mode with KCM, okay? Like, it's just crazy. So, that's basically going to be with what you're dealing with right there. If you guys ever or ever curious on, like, fucking, you know, KCM 1 Naruto or KCM 2 Naruto against War Arc Kakashi, or if you guys ever curious on Naruto with 6 paths against Kakashi with 6 paths, I'll be more than willing to cover that in a whole other video, not in this video at least. You know, and just let me know. Comment down below if you want me to do that video as well. But other than that, that's basically what you're working with, guys. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure to leave a like. Comment your thoughts down below. Who do you think wins this fight overall? Kakashi or Sage Mode Naruto? And at the end of the day, that's kind of what you got, you know? Subscribe for more content. Subscribe if you guys love the channel. There'll be plenty of more Naruto content coming out. And as a matter of fact, my next video that I'm going to be releasing is basically going to be scaling Zetsu. So I'm going to be doing a video of how powerful Zetsu is as an Akatsuki member. Because I kind of feel like I did him dirty in my Akatsuki ranking video. And I feel like he deserves a lot more credit and justice, in my opinion. So I really, really want to analyze him, do all my homework, read the entire manga of Naruto, look at everything that has to do with Zetsu, look at all the data books for Zetsu, and really give him a lot of hype, you know, and gas him up to the point that he deserves. I feel like I really did underestimate him, and that he deserves a lot more credit. Even though he's not really a combat type, he still is really, really impressive in his own way, in his own right. So, but yeah, that'll basically be it, guys. We're going to kind of leave it here at this video. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.